Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and happy Halloween. Today we're going to take a look at all of the Mego monsters that I have in my collection. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to give you my thoughts on what's going on with Mego and their exclusive deal with Topps. So I'm not going to go into it right now, but stay tuned to the end of the video because I will be talking a little bit about that. And because there's a little bit of a situation, a little bit of a controversy, so I'll go into that a little bit later, but right now I want to celebrate the fact that one of the most successful things that Mego did when they did their comeback in 2018 is they released a lot of these horror figures. And starting here with Face of the Screaming Werewolf, this one was actually wave 3 of the series that they did with Target. I missed out on like the first 2 waves, so there was like a Frankenstein figure and a Dracula figure. I never saw them at retail, was never able to get them, but this one actually showed up on Target's website. I'm going to say probably in 2019, just miraculously appeared, and so I was able to pick it up, and it is actually my favorite of all the Wolfman kind of figures that they did. And it's based on a B movie, but they did the licensing through Lon Chaney Enterprises. So, and you know, it looks great. I absolutely love this figure. It's definitely one of my favorites in my collection. And so that's where it all kind of started for me in terms of these monsters. And then basically when they got to, I believe it was wave 4 or 5, I think it was maybe wave 5, they did a re-release of a number of these characters. And so you got a re-release of Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Werewolf, and they changed things up. The original release of Frankenstein was done essentially with a green outfit and very kind of green skin, and in this release, you basically got a glow-in-the-dark feature and you got the shackles. So this one is really fantastic. Definitely a very cool figure. Again, not officially licensed with Universal or anything like that. So a lot of the features are kind of generic in terms of like the look of it, and the glow in the dark feature does work. You know, I've tested it actually. You know, you turn off the lights and boom, yeah, it does glow in the dark. So that's a cool feature and a really good looking figure. And then in terms of the Dracula figure, the original Dracula that was released at Target essentially had like a gray liner for the cape, and then they did this re-release which was with the red liner, and like to me this is the definitive version of Bela Lugosi Dracula. I think it's just fantastic. Love the picture on the back of the package, and I love the red liner and everything, and like the red in the packaging and stuff. To me this really pops, and so in terms of like going to the next level, I think they really did a good job, you know, when they did this particular re-release. And then they did another release, Face of the Screaming Werewolf over here. So they basically did a darker kind of fur color, and then they changed up the clothing a little bit. So you had this blue, you know, plaid shirt and slightly darker pants. And I did a customization of this figure, and so I want to show you that, basically what I did with it. So for this customization, I basically just re-outfitted the character using the accessories from the Richie Cunningham figure that they also released as a Target exclusive. And so essentially creating I was a teenage werewolf kind of figure. And I think that turned out quite nice and makes it a little bit more unique from just a straight up re-release of the werewolf with slightly different clothing. This actually gives it a completely different vibe. And I can't take credit for this idea. I had seen some other people do this online, and to me it made sense, and I think it looks fantastic. So that's that. And then getting into more of Wave 5, they released some new characters. So there was basically Invisible Man. And this one, again, is pretty much a generic kind of thing. They used the Al Bundy head sculpt and just cast it in this translucent plastic and gave him a suit. And nothing too spectacular about the packaging of it, but I do like the fact that, it does give the illusion that he is invisible. And mine is the version that doesn't include the sunglasses. There's several versions that have sunglasses that go with this figure. So yeah, I got the variant with no sunglasses, but it includes this little vial of like the potion that turns him invisible. So cool figure, and again, just a generic kind of thing. No official licensing involved in that. And then they did Nosferatu, which is obviously a classic of horror, and this figure pretty much knocks it out of the park in terms of like head sculpt and also all the detailing on the outfit and everything. So really fantastic, and not too much to say about the packaging. It's kind of plain, but it doesn't really matter because the figure itself speaks to any horror fan. You're gonna look at this and you'll be like, wow, looks fantastic. Really kind of amazing offering from Mego with the Nosferatu figure. They also did Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, and there were several versions of this that were released. This was the first version, and I believe there were a couple other versions. I think maybe they changed the color of the glove in consecutive releases. But great figure, and the head sculpt on this, absolutely stunning. I think they did an amazing job in terms of like the rendering of this, and the outfit includes his hat, and on the back of the package, nice big picture of Freddy. So again, another really, really fantastic figure. So this is definitely one of my favorites. As soon as I saw it being offered, I was like, yeah, I got to have that for my collection. And then we get into some later stuff. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They did Leatherface, and again, really fantastic head sculpt on this. And this is the first release, which include the yellow chainsaw. I will show you the variant of this later on in the video. And again, nice big picture on the back. Very, very cool figure. Exciting to have that in my collection. This movie is kind of terrifying, but also is regarded as a classic among certain horror fans. So very cool that they did this for Mego. Next up, we have the Kanamit from the Twilight Zone classic episode To Serve Man. And again, really fantastic head sculpt on this. And I'm hoping that they will do more Twilight Zone figures in the future. So this at this point, this is essentially just a one-off, but really just fantastic in terms of the overall presentation. The figure itself looks fantastic, and also the packaging is pretty exciting on this one. So very cool addition to my collection. I knew as soon as I saw this being released, I definitely wanted to have it. And then next up, we have the Fly over here. Again, this is sort of a generic version of this character, not necessarily based particularly on the movie. Definitely influenced by the actual original film, but there is no licensing on this. It's basically just generic. And I did a customization on this. There's two versions of this, I should say. There's a blue tie version and red tie version. I only have the red tie version, but I did buy an extra one so I could do this customization. I'll show you. All I did is essentially swap out the hand over here, because in the movie, he only half transforms into a fly, and he still retains a human hand on one side, which they just did a black hand on this side, and I was sort of like, so I did this custom just because I really thought it made sense in terms of like, modifying this one thing so it would seem more in tune with the way it looked in the movie. So cool figure, and very excited to have that one in my collection. Then we get into Mr. Hyde. Again, not based, I think, on a particular movie or anything like that. More or less just generic imagery. But they did a great job on the head sculpt. I think it looks really fantastic. And very exciting to have this in there. Again, minimal design on the packaging. Not getting too fancy. Really just letting the action figure itself, speak to you, and like, you don't have to have a lot of presentation in terms of the packaging when you have exciting head sculpts and stuff like this, you don't really need to overdo it in terms of packaging. So at some point, Mego obtained the licensing to do Universal Monsters, the official license. And so one of the ones that they did initially was Creature from the Black Lagoon. And this particular figure is really a standout for me in terms of like some of the stuff that they were doing. Fantastic head sculpt and unique hands, unique feet. And just in terms of like the overall presentation of this figure, I just think they, again, knocked it out of the park. Really just fantastic. Pretty simple on the imagery, a still from the film, and a cartoon image of the creature on the front of the package. So great figure, and this was one of the initial ones, and they did a lot more after that. They also were doing other licensed figures, including Jeepers Creepers. So you have this Creeper figure, and really fantastic head sculpt on this one as well. Fairly simple in terms of the costume. It comes with this little battle axe, and I like the imagery on the packaging too. Nice, imagery of the Creeper figure on the back too. So another great figure. Very happy to have that in my collection. And then continuing on with like the Universal monsters, you had the quintessential Frankenstein monster figure, and this one was the Boris Karloff sculpt. So really fantastic. Include the neck bolts and the all black outfit, and also the elevated boots too. So this one really nails it, more so than the initial Frankenstein figures that were released by Mego. This one, because of the likeness and everything, it's just really fantastic. So, and again, imagery on the back of the package shows this close-up of, the monster. So, great figure. I was super thrilled when they got the licensing to do the official monsters. And of course they did the Wolfman. So, although I still love that initial werewolf figure that they did, Face of the Screaming Werewolf, this is the more official version. And they did a different head sculpt here and also highlighted the sort of face. So this looks really good, and also a different outfit and more exaggerated features on the hands and feet too. By comparison to the initial Wolfman figure, this one is much more extreme in terms of the sculpting. So cool thing. And then a nice illustration of the Wolfman on the back of the package too. So cool figure. And then of course they did Son of Frankenstein. So essentially the same head sculpt as the initial Frankenstein figure, including the net bolts, but then they did the sort of this furry coat and long sleeves. So really nice figure here, and more extreme close-up imagery on the back too. So another fantastic version of the Frankenstein monster. So cool addition to my collection. And then here we have the variant of Texas Chainsaw Massacre Leatherface. They did a version with a red chainsaw. And so not everyone has this. The figure is essentially the same, and it's just a variation. So I was able to pick this up. I was mostly thinking of it in terms of doing some customs, because actually the feet on this figure are the Star Trek boots. So this actually gives me an opportunity to potentially create another Star Trek character just because of the reuse of those molded boots. And so I may do something with this figure later on, but I do like having the variation of the different colored chainsaw. And then last but not least, we have the Mummy figure. This is the most recent acquisition that I have in my collection. And again, with the Boris Karloff head sculpt on this, just looks fantastic. I missed out on getting the earlier Mummy figure. There are several different waves of figures that I missed out on. And one of them was they did a sort of generic Mummy, which featured some other features. But essentially, I think they probably learned a lot in terms of like creating this sort of wrapping thing, because they reused essentially the same technique to do this version, but now with the universal head sculpt and everything, and so imagery from the movie as well. So there are a number of figures that I missed out on in terms of stuff from Mego, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I will be obtaining more figures in the future, but you know, there's several waves that I missed out on, and one of them in particular that I regret a lot is there was a Phantom of the Opera figure that I didn't get, and that was a little frustrating for me. There were other figures in that wave, including the sort of generic version of the Mummy. There was also a Headless Horseman figure, which was actually pretty cool. There's another one I kind of missed out on. And so over the course of like all the Mego figures that they've been producing, there's been several that I've sort of like regretted not obtaining. And but I may be able to, you know, get them on the secondary market or go through and sort of like find them at some point, maybe from fellow collectors or something like that. But I want to address the issue of the Topps deal. Basically, Mego made an arrangement to have exclusives that were done, you know, with the Topps company, which is well known for doing sports cards and stuff like that. So they made an arrangement to have these exclusive figures available on the Topps website. And essentially, each week they would announce it on Monday, and you'd have 1 week in order to order these exclusive figures. And to me, that level of exclusivity, it's just super annoying, because like these figures weren't cheap either with the shipping and everything. In order to get the 2 figures that were announced each week, you had to cough up $50 and get it, you know, to them within a week. So having to pay $50 week after week after week because they were doing them consecutively, that as a model for how to market action figures, I just think it's incredibly misguided. Because like, I mean, who has the kind of expendable income who's like, oh yeah, $50 this week, $50 next week, and this is like how you're gonna sell action figures? And if you miss out, you miss out. Like they're never going to be available again. And like, I don't really understand that in terms of like a strategy for doing Mego stuff. Cause like up until recently, the only exclusives that they had were essentially the Target ones, which were back in 2018. And then ever since then, these things have been widely available at various retailers, including Walmart, including Target, including, you know, Big Bad Toy Store or wherever. So you were able to get these things, you know, from various sources. It wasn't about the exclusivity. It was about having these things widely available. And to me, that made more sense in terms of, you know, getting these things to collectors, you know, in a fashion where, you know, they weren't going to be missing out on things. So the Topps deal is the exact opposite of that. So, and I missed out on at least 6 different action figures that I really wanted to have in my collection. And I just didn't get them because I, you know, was busy that week, or I didn't have an extra $50 to spend. So if my understanding is correct, they put a pause on the release schedule. So hopefully they can sort out some of the problems that have been happening with these various releases. Hopefully they get it sorted out. To me, making sure that the Mego collectors who are out there who are interested in getting these figures are actually able to get them and don't have to, you know, deal with this kind of exclusivity kind of arrangement. Hopefully they can find a good balance so that people aren't going to be continually frustrated with the situation. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video looking at a lot of my Mego monsters. I will be obtaining more of these in the future, so please stay tuned to the channel. And if you like what you saw in this video, think about subscribing, because I will be covering a lot more Mego horror figures in the future. And stay tuned. There's lots more to come. Mego's releasing a lot more stuff coming up in the future. So just to wrap things up, I hope you have a safe and festive Halloween weekend, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.